All right, ground tether games. Number 1, ground tether introduction for young puppies 8 to 12 weeks of age. I played this with my recent board and train client. I haven't posted the video on the website yet, but if you guys go onto my Facebook page, I recently posted it there onto my business page, and she was fantastic. I did a before and after video of her pulling on the leash, and then her loose leash walking by my left side perfectly. Never curled up in front of me once. She was right there. She never walked in front of me. She was just right there perfectly by my left-hand side. And that happened in 2 weekend sessions. So I was working her probably for a total of 4 days. 4 days is all that it took in order to build up a really nice loose leash walk. Very, very short distance for now, but it was around a lot of distractions, and that's really good, especially since she is a reactive dog. All right, so goal behavior. This is what the behavior will look like in the end. With a mild distraction, the puppy chooses to not pull on the ground tether, keeping the leash loose with no pressure on their collar. So a ground tether is when you take the leash, hook it to your puppy, give them about 1 to 2 feet of distance, depending how big your dog is, and you step on it, right? And that's how much room they have, but they can't be pulling on it. Because once they start to pull, that's when bad habits happen, and when you try to walk your dog, they'll be pulling you down the street, okay? It is desirable for ground tether game 1 to be completed within 1 or 2 training sessions, effectively preparing the puppy for ground tether game number 2. And even though I was dealing with, gosh, how old is Molly? Going on 3 or 4-year-old dog. She did in two training sessions. She had it down like that. Okay, she knew exactly what was going on. So this is the video where it died the other week, right? So now you guys get to watch it in full. Fantastic video. Let's enjoy it. So what you'll be noticing in here is that if the dog does put leash pressure, as soon as they choose to remove it, that's when they're getting marked, okay? That's how you start it off. You don't want to be doing that forever because it can quickly become a game of bling, tight, loose, tight, loose, tight, loose, okay? That's just initially, all right? That's like pretty much the first, maybe second session only. What they're highlighting here is the opposition reflex. When you pull on a dog's leash, they naturally say, oh, no way, that's weird, I don't want to come towards you, and they push back and they say, just like what this puppy's doing, okay? So that is opposition reflex. So our goal here is to teach them to come with the leash, not to have that opposition reflex. So that was a very, very slight release in pressure. Let's watch that again. Let's see where you can see where this trainer is marking. As soon as it was as slight, he was really struggling with this behavior, right? He was really pulling, really struggling, kind of stressing out. And as soon as he lifted his head up just a little bit, that person marked, okay? It's those tiny, tiny opportunities that you guys need to be marking and reinforcing if your dog's having a hard time with this. Nice. So as you can see, the leash is a little bit tight, but it's not as tight as it was in the beginning, and everything is kind of in, when you're doing this and when you are training, it's all in perspective, right? Because if your dog is really pulling hard, this tight leash, quote unquote, is fantastic. But if this is where your dog started off at, you know, maybe you might want a little bit of a looser leash at that point, okay? So again, keep your training goals all in perspective to what your dog is showing in their behavior to you. Now you can see just how loose that leash is. Looks like they might have changed places, the dog's really caught on, and that leash has really started to get slack, okay? Now you can see down here, I'll rewind that a little bit, you can see that they tossed a toy. They're already moving on to distraction work. And for Molly, since she's a reactive dog, guess what her distraction work was? She normally barked at people and dogs. So her distraction work was people and dogs. We didn't get so much with dog work done, but we got a lot of people work done. And every time she saw a person move, do something, boom, she looked right back up at me. Okay, and that's what they're doing here when they're starting with their puppy. But again, we'll go over all of this real quickly. Did you see what that puppy was doing? He was offering his loose leash behavior. He was kind of moving his head up and down. Watch that again. So they throw movement right there. Did you see that head nodding? That's him offering a loose leash. And the trainer is marking for offering that behavior. I don't necessarily want your dog's head bobbing up and down, right? I just want them offering you them sitting there, being nice and polite and looking at you. I will totally mark that behavior. As you can see here at the end, they're offering a very mild distraction by somebody that they already know. They made a little kissy noise. So you're gonna have a helper for this one, all right? Offer a very mild distraction for the dog to look at and then chooses to immediately look back at you. Then you wanna mark, okay? Very good. So, next one, please. All right, so training session objectives, what we want to achieve in each training session. Create a strong history of food reward for choosing not to pull against fixed collar pressure. Apply the mark and reward for desirable behavior. Creating desired behavior choices from the puppy. A session setup. Description of environment and or equipment needed and preparation. A low distraction environment with the floor clear of any enticements. Handler stands firmly on the leash with the balls of their feet. The leash length from the feet to the puppy is approximately 2 feet, short enough so that the puppy jumps up on the handler, the puppy feels collar pressure, long enough so that the puppy's collar will be loose if the puppy stands close to the handler's legs. Handler should have suitable food rewards. Key handling points. Handler remains stationary and allows the puppy to react to the ground tether, marking and rewarding the following desirable behaviors. Ceasing pull on the collar, looking at a distraction but not moving towards it, and looking at the handler. Handler strives to offer rewards close to their legs to support the puppy feeling a loose collar. So close to your legs, once you get there on the seam of your pant legs on the left side, okay? Most puppies will display opposition reflex to the ground tether, such as trying to pull away. Handler strives to initially mark any reduced pulling on the collar to promote the puppy's understanding of moving towards the fixed pressure. Once the puppy is choosing to fully loosen their collar against the ground tether, the handler should begin only marking a fully loose leash, or collar. Now, there is a more comfortable way to introduce this kind of game to your dog. You can also attach a leash to your dog's collar, give them about 2 feet of leash length, and lure your dog while adding pressure to their neck. That is effectively counter-conditioning the opposition reflex, okay? So you can pull while also pezzing your dog to follow you, all right? If your dog really has a hard time with these ground games, then using that counter-conditioning technique is really going to help expedite your dog's training, all right? And make it a much more pleasant experience. Mild distraction is used to entice the puppy to pull away from the ground tether. This can be a toy placed a few feet out of reach or a person making calm noises out of reach. Note, distraction is meant to create a very minor pull away from the ground tether, not a crazy, excitable reaction. Completion and next steps. Once the puppy demonstrates offering to keep a loose leash with mild distraction, the next step is to initiate ground tether sessions with increasingly challenging distractions. Ground tether game number 2. Ground tether game number 2, yay! So we have completed ground tether game number 1. We have completed recalls from the name game to the leash on-leash recall to the off-leash recall. Now we're going on to ground tether games. And I think, no, so we're gonna do ground tether, we're gonna do another tether game, and then there's 2 more after this, which is the paw pad games, okay? So we're about halfway there. Are we having fun yet? Happy coronavirus week, guys. Oh my goodness. All right. So we have another fabulous video. As you can see right here, there's a puppy on the ground tether because the person's standing on their leash, and there's a bunch of wonderful good stuff. We have another 10 minutes, guys. I will be making another link to send you. This is going to be a fantastically long 40-minute session, bit by bit, live video. Oh. Guys, I hope you stocked up on alcohol if you're allowed to have alcohol, because I'll just make it that much more entertaining. Okay, so let's get ready to rumble. Okay, so we're reviewing what we watched last time. So right here is when she marked. That's when she said, nice, okay? Because the dog came up, it was a little bit looser, and it also prevented the dog from going over to see the person. Because you did see this dog's a little bit more excitable with that person, okay? So it was on the verge of being too difficult for him, but because he has a great trainer that prevented too much excitability and marked when the leash was loose, we prevented anything like, you know, happening there. Hello, that's not where I wanted. So yeah, the dog's still pretty excitable. I would say on the verge, like already he made the leash too tight. They're probably going a little too fast with this dog. I would say just the person moving, you saw them grab a toy too, right? I would say X the toy, probably just move a little bit slower next time. And you could probably have an even faster, you know, learning puppy for this session without as much tugging on the leash and collar, okay? Yes! did. Did you notice how she marked when the person walked over to the toy before she actually picked it up? Because she saw where this was going.
Sounds good.
So again, you know, they are setting the dog up to fail here. Your dog shouldn't be pulling this much when you're doing it. Ideally, this should be from a farther direction or a farther distance to prevent too much pulling, okay? Because as they're saying here, the tether manages the errors. The dog made an error, but it was only because the humans made the error as well, okay? So keep that in mind. But when it does happen, once the dog, you know, again, your mistake, right? But when it does happen, once the dog does choose to loosen out any of that leash, like you just saw, that is when you mark and reward, okay? So let's watch that again. And now she's increasing the rate of reinforcement here, okay? Because she doesn't want him to mess up too many times. Yeah, preferably at all. But we all make mistakes. I would bet that this room is very small and they've wanted to show the distance. What is a tab? Oh, you mean back from the recall games? So a tab is, Ingrid, you know what a tab is. It's that short little leash-like collar thing, right? It's like a traffic stop, but it's just a single short loop on the dog's collar. That's a tab. Actually, I think that is a traffic stop just by itself. A tab is actually just straight, doesn't have the loop. Does that make sense? So you can have a very short loop on the dog's collar or just a very short piece of line, piece of leash called a tab, okay? All right, so yeah, I think this room is super small, which is probably why they've put it too close to the dog because it'd be out of camera view. But I mean, you can put the camera over there, right? I don't know. I don't know their circumstances, but that's my best guess. I would like to give them the benefit of the doubt. Ah, no, wait, stop, don't. There we go. Now notice, okay, this is probably just outside where they're at, as low as distraction as they can get. It's all fenced in. Now there are some minor distractions for a dog to sniff over here. Excuse me. But you can practice this just outside the door and build up to that distance, okay? So again, you're gonna be practicing in a brand new location. Let your dog take it in for a little bit, especially, excuse me, especially if you're going to the parking lot for the first time. And just let them take it in for, I don't know, a good 10 minutes, 10, 15 minutes, however long they need before you start with the tether games, okay? But yeah, practice these tether games in a bunch of locations, all right? Especially the ground tether. That's going to save your butt on so many occasions, especially with the loose leash walking, okay? Go to a lot of low distraction environments. Make sure your dog knows it. If they're fantastic in those low distraction environments, great. Ramp it up just a little bit, okay? Maybe be near a daycare or something. Maybe be out in the front yard in front of your condo or your house where kids are playing. These days, kids are outside playing every day of the week. So there's that. Now, as you can see, this person is adding in a couple of distractions at a time. They've built up to that. It's another person, they're putting down sticks and leaves, and they're making these weird calmer noises as they're doing it. And the dog, look, the puppy is looking at this person. But as soon as they look back up, okay? So what they're doing is they are creating all of these distractions to become a natural cue to look at the handler, okay? That is what's happening right now. You don't have to cue your dog to look at you. You don't have to say anything. The dog is making this natural association of someone does something, there's stuff nearby, there are smells, there's weird noises, I look at my handler, okay? That's what's going on here.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Now, when you go on to pieces of, I think it looks like a sheet of toilet paper or any kind of paper. Dogs like paper. A lot of puppies like paper. They even like paper towel rolls. And when they see something moving erratically, swaying in the wind, it's very, very enticing. So that can be something really good to proof your dog against.
Nice. Nice. Nice.
Aha! This is fantastic. Petting on the back becomes a cue to look at you, okay? Again, when you're dealing with the 3 Ds, distance, duration,